Hello, everybody. Hello. Can you all hear me well? Yes. People in the back? Yeah. My friends? Very good. Well, welcome everybody to our session. My name is Zeki Barzinji. It's a pleasure to be with you all here. Coming. I am the director of the Building Bridges program at Doris Duke Foundation. Nice. We've got some fans in the audience. Very cool. Our session today is an interesting and relevant and hopefully exciting, hopefully kind of fun session, which is going to be focused on I would say, oh, there it is up there. This is a very long title. So, creators aren't your vendors is the name of this title, of the name of this session. I think the fundamental question we're going to talk about today is how do you have a positive relationship with creators? How do you center creators in all that we do in our partnerships? And how do you also, most importantly, preserve authenticity? So, without further ado, I'm going to call up to the stage our amazing panelists, Shaina and Kamau. Give it up for both. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you.
I wanted to start out by asking you guys, sort of in the spirit of this session, to introduce yourselves on your own terms, because I know and love both of you. I know of all of your work, but I want to give you the chance to introduce yourselves on your own terms. So please, if you would, start out by saying who you are, what you do, and then to kind of kick us off on this conversation about content and creators, what is a piece of content, the most recent piece of content that moved you, whether to tears, to laughter, to action? And let's start from there.
Oh, I was going to pass it to you.
Nope, too late.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Shaina. I'm formerly the co-founder and CMO of Juve Consulting, which is the largest, most popular Gen Z agency. Thank you, Sue. I'm also Sue's biggest fan, Zeki's biggest fan, Kamau's biggest fan. I'm a fangirl, period. But I sold that business to United Talent Agency about 2 years ago on March 1st. It'll be 2 years. And get to focus a lot on the intersection of brand, creators, what does it look like to think about the new media ecosystem, and how are we thinking about platforming diverse young voices, as well as thinking about the next era of what culture is and where it exists, and creators are definitely pioneering a lot of that. And it's my first Sundance, so I'm honored to be here with you all.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Oh, and I have to answer a question now quickly.
Please.
I'm definitely
take your time.
biased. I said I'm a fangirl. Riz Ahmed was an interest on my resume when I was 16 years old. I'm now 26 years old, and if you've ever needed a sign for God, for manifestation, for prayer, this is it, because now I get to call Riz a friend, and yesterday I got to go to his screening for his new comedy drama series called Bait, which will be on Amazon in March, and I think to your point on asking what really has moved me, I think getting to see people tell just stories about their lived experiences that aren't tied specifically to our identity or where we come from or our backgrounds, but just the experience of what humanity feels like for all of us, and those universal moments is what has been so powerful to see in Riz's work, and I think this is something that's very different to what he's done in his previous discography. So absolutely recommend you all watch it when it comes out on Amazon, but that was something that's moved me, and I'm very grateful to have gotten to see it.
Thank you so much, Shaina. Sorry, just to zero in on this, did you say that you had Riz as an interest on your resume?
Yes, it was microwavable meals, satisfying sand videos, fonts, and Riz Ahmed.
Wow. Tip to all of you who are working on your resumes.
Yes, and it worked, I think, right? So
you
it worked.
Manifested it, yeah. UTA fan now. Kamau.
Yes.
No introduction needed for Kamau.
Concise.
My name is W. Kamau Bell. I am a husband and father of 3 girls. I live in the People's Republic of Oakland, California, where we are very proud to have 16 Academy Award nominations for Sinners and Ryan Coogler. I had nothing to do with it, but I live in Oakland. So feeling a lot of Oakland pride right now. I came to this business a long, long time ago, well before you were born. No offense. As a stand-up comedian who just wanted to get on Saturday Night Live and be like Eddie Murphy, I went a different direction, I guess. And so I'm most known for CNN's United Shades of America, where I did 7 seasons traveling around the country, talking to people. From that, I got to start directing documentaries, and I did a 4-part series that premiered here at Sundance called We Need to Talk About Cosby. Yep. And then and have directed a documentary called 1,000. Look at here the people are. Wait a minute.
These are mostly
we got to start over.
Too. These are all brown people.
Yeah, we got to start over. So so now I'm a. And nowadays people know me because they say, I like your social media, because I say a lot of things that I guess people feel like they can't say, because I guess I'm not worried about jobs. I am very worried. But so I would say the content that moved me recently, this morning I got a text from my wife. One of our close family friends, a woman named Emily Goldthwaite-Fries, is a minister. She lives in Minneapolis. She's baptized all 3 of our kids. College friend of my wife. She is part of a group called Isaiah Minnesota, which is a group of faith leaders and clergy and community leaders who went to the airport this morning in Minneapolis to protest airlines, including Delta, for working with ICE. So my wife's and so 100 clergy people got arrested in America, loaded on a school bus and got arrested. So Emily sent my wife. She's basically said, can Kamau share this video or share some content about this? And so I reached out to Emily. Was like, can you just send me whatever you want me to send? And so I posted a short video of these people, and it just felt like, this is like. When I met this woman over 20 years ago, I didn't know we would be here together, but thank God we're here together. And what I'm supposed to do is put this video on the internet of clergy people protesting ICE in the middle of fascism.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amazing. Oh, wow, we're standing room only now.
We need to move to the big room.
Seats.
Everybody, follow me. We need to
go. Thank you both for those introductions. I think we really already grounded the conversation in this idea of, in a lot of ways, authentic storytelling. I mean, both of the contents that you shared have very deeply personal connections to who you all are as people, as creators. Since this session is about approaching creators and partnering with creators, I wanted to start out or keep going on this topic of authenticity. Or, in other words, keeping it real. Kamau, maybe I can start with you. You already mentioned your time at the CNN show, United Shades of America. I've been a fan of yours since your original show, Totally Biased on FX. And one thing I've always appreciated about you, whether you're doing stand-up or you're interviewing Klansmen, is you always show up as your authentic self. And you always, at least to me, radiate radical empathy. Even again, when you're talking to Klansmen and utter racists. I'm just curious, since this is our topic, could you tell us a little bit about the importance of preserving a creator's authenticity, especially when it comes to engaging audiences? Why is authenticity important?
Authenticity is all that we have left in the age of AI, the AIfication of the world. All that we have left is actual, I'm a human who is talking to you, and I'm messing up some words, and don't know what I'm going to say next, and this is something I care about, and I tried to do several takes of this, but I couldn't get it right. Here it is. So I think that authenticity is, and that's literally all I have is authenticity, because I have no job skills. So if you like me, then we can work together, but I don't have any other go-to moves other than being me. And so when I sort of realized that, actually while I worked on the CNN show, the things that some people didn't like about me, I realized, oh, that's actually me. And the things that some people liked about me, I was like, I'll do more of that. I remember the actor Vincent D'Onofrio, I met him one time and he said, the first time we were on CNN, I was like, did this guy just walk off the street? And because he was saying everybody else was so polished and I was looking like me. And he's like, but I like, and he kept watching and he's a fan. I'm not in any way insulting Vincent D'Onofrio. But the idea that I realized all I can do is be me and surround myself with people who understand what that is and who also have my best interests at heart, so they can be like, you need to do a little more of this. And so that's the CNN show really taught me who my tribe was and who and that that instead of growing up as a black kid in the 70s and 80s who felt like there weren't any other black kids like me and sort of felt like I had to lean away from being a weirdo, and then coming into my adulthood and being like, oh no, I need to lean into being this, and then understanding that just means there's certain things I'm not going to be offered, or certain things I'm not going to be invited into, and I have to be fine with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Shaina, you, as you know, I've also been a fan of your work for many years. As you mentioned, you co-founded one of the very first Gen Z-run ad agencies, and now you regularly work with young creators at UTA. Can you tell us why authenticity is important, especially when it comes to Gen Z and Gen Alpha audiences, who I feel like have one of the best bullshit meters of any generation?
For sure. My 9-year-old brother definitely keeps me accountable. I think the word authenticity has just become somewhat of an overused buzzword to an extent, and I think what young people and audiences and creators are really craving is transparency. I think so often the institutions that were meant to empower us have actively disempowered us, whether it's governments, whether it's corporations, whether it's people in our own peer group that we feel like have betrayed us, and what we thought was the capital T truth is different than lowercase t truth at a time of misinformation. And I think even to what you were saying about at an age where AI and misinformation exists, like people are craving real storytelling and people that feel like it's your best friend talking to you. The reason why creators have such a strong resonance or engagement ratio or ability to really move capital, product, ideas, and experiences is because your comment section feels like it's a text chain between you and your best friend. And we've been able to democratize that because of social media, and that's what authenticity to me looks like, is the fact that you can have an open dialogue, you can find people with common interests and those that also disagree with you, and have a forum and a space to do that because of what social media has done for us. But I think at the end of the day, people are really craving transparency. If you believe one thing to be true and you're not with us, then just say that. And that's totally and completely fine. But I think when brands, institutions, and legacy media claims to be everything to everyone, it feels like it's nothing to all of us. Thank you, Sue.
That is a stat moment for sure. Thanks, Shaina. So on that front about transparency and authenticity, and I think not being duplicitous, especially when you're trying to partner with creators. So I work at the Doris Duke Foundation now. I'm a newbie.
Woo, 2 weeks in, let's go.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we are one of the first foundations to prioritize working with influencers and creators. And so hit up Neil in the back if you are a creator or an influencer and want to partner with us. But I think there's always a question among philanthropies like us, but also brands and institutions on, what is the best way to partner with influencers and creators. I want to start off maybe more on like the negative side of that. I was curious if either of you, just if anything comes to mind in terms of horror stories of partnerships with creators that have gone wrong, whether it's brands or politicians or other folks. Cases in which maybe the dynamic was not the way it should have been, and therefore it was didn't yield the results that maybe that they wanted. Anything come to mind on that?
I would say the best work that we've done with brands and for influencer campaigns is when their brief is no brief. And obviously there's some stipulations and caveats to that, but I think sometimes we index too much on the product needs to be at this angle and we want you to do this script and these are the 3 key messaging points you need to hit, when in reality creators are incredible at what they do because they know their audience, they know what will resonate, and they can build that for themselves. So the idea of freeing yourself and having a little bit more of liberty to say we trust you and go with the first draft, maybe we need to approve it, but things are oftentimes so bureaucratic for brands that it feels like it's a massive risk to fully trust what a creator's narrative is. But the best campaigns have always been those that creators themselves have decided, like, this is how I would just position the product or position what you're telling me. And I think that, I have to give a lot of credit to Neil as well for being someone like Kamau and I sit on the DDF Creator Advisory Council. And when I met with Neil and we were talking about creators, I was like, the best way to think about creators to me is like, as the creator economy is expanding, building one-on-one relationships with them is incredibly critical, and also asking them questions. I have 5,000 followers on Instagram. I am not a creator. You should go follow Kamau. He knows what he's talking about. I am just friends with a lot of amazing creators, and I look to them to figure out how to navigate this space. They understand it better than I do. They know what their needs are, and for us to make assumptions is the worst thing that we can do if we're trying to reach your target audience. And that's why even working with DDF has been so exciting and critical for someone like me, where I'm like, you understand what you know and what you don't know. And that's when things go wrong, is when we try to attempt to know what the right thing is. But I can't really say, I mean, you work with us because you want to get things right, so we don't really get things wrong that often, but I have
maybe
seen
not
briefs
something
go
that you
wrong.
were a part of, maybe
So-
something that you observed maybe in the wild on the...
I would say that some of the things that I think are concerning to me now, or when I look at how people are engaging with creators today, is like, honestly, like the rise of the manosphere. Like I've had conversations with a lot
I'm
of...
sorry.
And you know, again, come out, if you want to take credit for that, maybe you should. I don't know what's happening.
I'm just apologizing generally.
On behalf
On
of
behalf
all
of
men.
all men.
A lot of those are men comedians, and as a
But
representative.
I think when
Not all men, but always
know,
men.
I think
Mostly men.
for sure. And this is not even an indictment. I'm not here to be like, oh my God, like
Feel
men
free.
are trash, all
Indict
of
away.
it, you know. But I bring that up as a point to say, like, my fear comes from the fact that when we're in echo chambers and silos, and when brands also have to then feel like they're picking between sides, I don't view things to be partisan. I view our identities to be political, not partisan. Who I am as a Muslim, as a Pakistani, as a first-gen person in this country impacts the way that I view my sense of the world, but it's not necessarily partisan. These are universal experiences that exist for all of us, and brands oftentimes are really afraid to do something that feels inherently political to them. And that's why when I look at content creators or the rise of, you know, like cis white men or people giving this type of critique, it's because we've alienated them. And I think we need a counterbalance that's against that, and I think brands are playing a critical role in that, because they get to distribute capital out, and what brands are doing effectively or ineffectively is really impacted by how they choose to distribute capital to voices that they believe will benefit their bottom line. So there's not an incentive alignment, and I think the brands that we're seeing roll back on DEI or succumb to what the Trump administration is doing is indicative of when things go wrong, because
Yeah.
it feels like we were given false promises as consumers.
Interesting. Okay. Kamau, any thoughts on...
I agree. So years ago, I don't even know if I should name the brand, but okay, I don't know. Look at it. The person who tells me no just said no, so I'm not doing it.
What does it rhyme with?
Let me get there. So I'm with WME. No offense to UTA.
No, I'm talent agnostic. I love them. I
And
love
so,
them all.
This is
and
gonna get
they at some point when I was on United Shades, there was a sense of like, you know, let's meet. We can meet with the brand department and figure out if there's things. And so they got me like this weird brand thing where for one day I went to radio stations to talk about their thing, their product, which is a weird space for me to be in, because it was not something I wouldn't use. I mean, it was. So anyway, let's say it's shampoo. Let's say it's Dove. But so and I would show up at these radio stations to talk about it, and it was also the same day that Trump had done something. This is the first time around. Remember when he those things? They seem so quaint now. And so everybody was like, great about the soap. What about what he just did? And I looked across the radio station every time, and the people from the place would be like, So I learned in that moment, like, I can't do this in a way that isn't like actually integrated with who I'm going to be in the world. So I can't, let's say, and that was, no offense to them, I would, you know, no, it's just and also there was nothing they asked, they didn't like say, how would you like to do this in a way that would make sense? Because I was like, there's probably a way I could figure this out, but not like going to radio stations where they're like, oh, come out here, we can talk about all the issues. And I'm like, first, let's talk about soap. So I think, and nothing against them, and da-da-da, and if you're still out there, we'll talk again. I got 3 kids, but I learned sort of quickly, like, either I have to change myself to make myself more brand friendly, or I just got to go hardcore in the direction that I'm going in and see who shows up. And so that's what I have done in the interim. And oftentimes brand things will happen now it'll be a thing that I'm talking about a lot, and somebody from that will reach out and be like, hey, you want to be, like, for example, this t-shirt I'm wearing right now, this is Mahogany Mommies. I found that they were like wearing this all slogan t-shirts, and I found out I was buying all of them. And eventually the person reached out and was like, would you like to be a part of this and strike a deal? And I was like, yes, I would, because I would be doing this anyway. 20% off with the code WKB. But it was like, I have to be out there. You have to sort of already know who I am and embrace me before, and know that I'm going to be talking about the things if you want me to be a part of this. Or else, again, I just know that we can't do business. Yeah,
absolutely. For those who can't see, his shirt says, "Why do we defend systems we know are broken?" And it's Mahogany Mommies.
Yeah.
Mommies.
.com.
Promo code WKB.
Yeah. Promo code WKB. No, but I think that the idea that I understand that, like, I always say to people, like, when I'm talking to them, I'm a niche product. You know, a friend of mine said one time, Kamal's like bringing sushi to the barbecue. And so, it's a friend of mine. And a lot of you are like, I would love that. Exactly. You're my demographic. But I have to understand that, so I don't have expectations about, like, how come I'm not getting the thing that Kevin Hart is getting? Yeah. How come I haven't been called by those companies? Because you're the niche product.
I love that. So we talked a little bit about sort of from the brand and partnership side. Creators themselves, what do you think they should keep in mind when they're approached with these types of opportunities? Kamal, obviously you are a creator yourself. Shaina, you work with creators. Any thoughts there, advice you would give to creators themselves on how to sort of, maintain their own agency, their own power, their own voice as they approach these opportunities?
There's now a few platforms that are out there that are geared towards creator transparency. So I think there's some gray areas in terms of, like, who's getting a brand deal at what price point, how can I actually position myself for more long-term partnerships rather than just one-offs. I think even in the example that Kamal shared, like, you're a walking billboard for them because you love the product and it's a great fit for you. And I think for creators, honestly, like, to me, like, niche is the new mainstream. Like, if you are someone that has a category, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's in political commentary, entertainment, news, there's news influencers, there's edutainment, like this idea of education and entertainment on TikTok, for example. So there's all these subcultures that now exist online where people are, like, highly engaged, and oftentimes I think brands are trying to figure out where should they actually show up and target creators to actually get better engagement. So to me, it's like finding your niche and figuring out what you care about and leaning into it can be incredibly powerful. And then also, like, how can you show to a brand that I have best friends that are also real subject matter thought leaders in what we're building. So, like, one of the things that I tell creators all the time is, like, if you're friends with other creators, like, you just meet up and make content. Like, it can be everything from, like, a get ready with me to you guys in the car, like, showing the idea of community that extends beyond the digital sphere and into the real world is incredibly critical for us to actually think about how people want to be in person. Like, we're all kind of brain rotting and doom scrolling on our phones. So if you can be a brand that gets me to get out of my bed and actually show up at a store, that's, like, how you're really going to resonate with the creators. So I think those are some of the things that we've found to be successful. And I think whenever you can advocate and, like, just ask and a brand other questions, like, that works in your favor. But Kamal, I'm sure you have a lot of other insights.
What advice would you give to creators?
Again, because I want to be clear. Like, I think there are people who their version of being themselves is being completely opposite of me. So I'm not saying everybody should be. So when I even reference Kevin Hart, I think that is him. You know what I mean? And I think that the big thing is, like, really, I just was there's a music like, she calls herself the indie mama on TikTok, Jane Lee, and I watch her even though I'm not doing music, and she says, stop holding on to your songs because you're waiting for them to be perfect. Throw them out there so you can get feedback and make better songs. And I think that's good advice for every creator. The more you sort of turn over whatever it is you're doing in creation, the more you're sort of holding yourself to, like, I'm going to post regularly, or I'm going to do, the more you're sort of doing that, the more your audience will start to give you feedback, and the more you'll start to learn about yourself, and the more you'll learn when your audience's feedback is wrong, you're like, no, I'm going to still do this anyway. So the more you can sort of refine who you are, the better it'll be when some brand comes and says, we want to do this, because it'll be clear to you at that point, like, do I do this or do I not do this?
That's great.
Also, when you said edutainment, because I'm old. I don't know if anybody remembers a rapper named KRS-One.
Yes.
But KRS-One is the person who brought that word edutainment to me. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Really?
Okay, now I have to give him credit. My bad.
No, I'm not saying
Congrats to you.
I don't know if he invented it, but that was certainly for many of us who grew up in the old days of the 90s.
And I don't know who this man is. So
well, see,
flowers to
I didn't
him.
want to ask you directly if you knew, but good for you for saying you didn't. KRS-One. I think he had an album called
I'm learning. This is intergenerational dialogue.
Well, it is. And I would be clear. A lot of what I do as a creator has been inspired by younger creators who are like, I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing now? Oh, I just talk directly into my phone?
It's so funny.
Okay. And now I'm on TikTok talking directly into my phone. And I have like 27,000 followers.
Whoa. And we always say like 14-year-old girls have set the trend for every generation. So like once they tell you what's hot and relevant, whether it's Justin Bieber, One Direction, Labubu's, K-pop Demon Hunters, like the rest of us adopt it.
You've just said everything that's in my house right now. I have a
same here.
I have a 14-year-old daughter, an 11-year-old daughter, and a 7. And
you should ask them what's hot and relevant.
Yes, I know about Demon Hunters. I know about K-pop.
I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she acts like a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And
that's also happening.
She took a labubu to her. She gave a labubu as a gift to her friend who's Muslim, and her friend was like, "I was told this is the devil's pet."
No. Let
So she had to take it back
live.
home.
That's crazy.
The labubus live for sure.
I'm not going to answer that one.
Kamal, you brought it up in the beginning, AI, and sort of the diametric opposition to authenticity. I mean, artificial is in the name of AI. I want to ask you both, in what ways has AI and other forms of emerging technology impacted the overall kind of storyteller ecosystem? I think there's some pretty divided opinions these days. Some folks think that AI is going to be the savior of us all. Some think it's going to, spell absolute doom and death for creative expression. And oftentimes it seems like it's a binary. Either you're all in or you're all out. I'm just curious to hear from you all. In what ways have you seen it impact creators and their ability to express themselves?
To me, AI feels like a bridge between discovery and actualization of whatever end product is. So for example, if you're a creator or if you're an everyday person, right? If you want to buy a product and you're excited and considering the next dress you want to wear to your event, odds are you're still going to go to your friends first, or you're going to go to TikTok or social first because you have a multitude of options and experiences. And do I think at some point AI will be able to be at the first place of discovery? Yes. Do I think we're there yet? No. And in terms of where discovery is happening, word of mouth is still the most resonant way for people to make decisions. If your friend says they loved something, odds are you're going to go and actually look into it much more so than 5 different TikTok videos that come on your feed. So I think AI is now becoming a tool where you can ask better questions, you can use it to optimize things and make them more efficient. And I think, at least to the creators that have tried to leverage it, like there's a lot of questions around accessibility, around creative color accessibility, audio accessibility. How can we actually make these tools a mechanism and a means to make more people get more of our content? I think is really exciting for creators, and also for them to experiment with things. I think even to the point that Kamal was making, this idea of like now, like you don't need a team of 10 people or a full assigned team to you to be able to execute out against things. If I have a concept and I just want to have a proof of concept very quickly, AI is a great gut check to it. Even if the tools are being created by them and on their own creative suites, that means the end product is still a completely different suite that's being integrated into it. But I think to act as if AI is not here, or to be remiss of its impact or its positionality would be foolish. But I think at the same time, like, this just means we have to index more on the things that AI can't replace. To me, AI can't replace relationships. That means you should be convening more in person with people. Even if you want to use AI to build your CRM and find the right creators and the right people, you should absolutely use it and leverage it for that. But then for the parts that we can't have it take control of, those are the things that we should be doubling down into even further.
Kamal, how do you feel?
It's complicated. I don't use I don't use AI as a creative tool. I guess I would say that. However, I also understand that, like, when I post these videos on TikTok, there's an option to, like, do you want this to translate this into other languages? That's about accessibility. I'm like, yes, of course. And I get to hear what I sound like if I'm fluent in Spanish for the first time, although with a slight robot voice. But and so I understand it as a tool, and I think the issue is there's a couple issues here. One, there's that expression, if you only have a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. I think right now people are doing that with AI. they're using it for too many things, and then you're putting AI in places where they don't belong. And then the other side of that is there's the people, the bad faith actors of AI are out there washing us in AI that we're not even seeing. And the other problem is the people who own the AI companies are mostly demons, I think is the technical term. There goes that brand deal. I'm just talking about Elon Musk and Sam Altman and
boo-boos.
Just in them, yeah. I heard Sam Altman say on Jimmy Kimmel that AI would cure diseases, and I was like, no. Doctors using AI will cure diseases. And I think there's a real sense of like AI is going to take it from here, and I think that's dangerous. And the way I've seen it really play out is that with all the things going on in Minneapolis right now, we are awash in AI videos of people confronting ICE. And there are all these like sort of like 10 5-second videos of people like a server in a Mexican restaurant pouring the food over the ICE people, and the ICE people just not knowing how to react, like they don't know, and we know they know how to react because we've seen it. So for me, the idea is that and my mom's 89, she's great, she's with it, she's living her best life. My daughter's 14. I've showed them both videos like that they were both fooled by. So for me, I think that we are in a dangerous place, that if we just let AI take it from here and we let bad faith actors decide what that means, then we're letting the tool use us instead of using the tool.
Absolutely. I think keeping it solidly in the realm of this is a tool that we use to assist what we're doing, not a replacement for the thing that we're doing or us.
I'm a technology person. I'm not like a person who's like, I like all the new technologies. And I was like, ooh, but I think there's a sense of like, but it's supposed to be a thing that I'm using, not a thing that is using me. And so I'm like, why is my phone telling me this?
Right. And I think especially for storytellers, especially if you're from, marginalized communities in particular, if you come from a community for whom the last 40, 50 years of representation in media has been stereotypical or offensive or racist or bad, all of that representation is now data that these new AI models are being trained on. And the output in the future of those communities, of those stories by AI is going to be trained on that. And so what you end up having is reinforcement of racist tropes, offensive tropes, Islamophobic tropes, misogynist tropes. And it seems like to a lot of people, AI is like this big black box and you don't know how it works or what it does, and therefore you don't feel like you have agency to influence its development. When in fact, there actually are ways that creators, I think, can have a direct impact on the development of AI and these technologies, and can provide content and can ensure that stories from our communities are represented and are taken into account. But it's hard when you come from communities that are inherently distrustful of things like tech and data privacy and things like that. So I'm, generally curious about how people in the creator space navigate that. Like, how do you sort of encourage your communities that you come from, that you work with, to tell their stories, to be out there, even as they're distrustful inherently of some of these platforms that they're using?
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
So just to connect this to how complicated the AI thing is. So a video went viral a couple months ago of this white man creator, I don't know his name, but he's in the San Francisco airport. And there's this exhibit in the San Francisco airport about black women in tech and Afrofuturism. And he showed how the exhibit said that it was used generative AI. And he sort of mocked the exhibit for saying, you're claimed to be showing black women in arts and black women in tech, and yet you're using generative AI. And he sort of made fun of it, and like he's a white guy with a lot of privilege. I think he lives in Utah actually, who like was sort of making fun of this. And then I'd been to the exhibit with my 14-year-old daughter, hadn't really read that closely, and I was like, wait a minute, but that exhibit talks about my cousin N.K. Jemisin. She's a real person. And if you so on my way here, I actually made a video, I haven't put it up yet, of me walking through there going, yes, a black woman used generative AI to make parts of this, but there's also pictures of real black women with their real biographies and real people in the world who have done good things, of course, that because he was so wanted to make fun of this AI thing, he actually ended up demonizing a bunch of black women.
Wow.
What else you got? No, and I only bring it up because it was literally, this is how I'm like, I get the AI. I'm not pro AI, but I'm also like, let's not let AI tell us what the truth is.
Yeah, for sure. And I was in December. I was in LA for a MPAC Hollywood event that was focused on preserving Muslim storytelling in the age of AI, and it was so fascinating. There was a bunch of screenwriters and filmmakers and directors, and there was a debate that emerged within the group where some folks said that actually, why shouldn't we embrace AI if it allows me to create, visual effects on par with a major Hollywood studio, and that major Hollywood studio is not making my movies? Suddenly the playing field is level, and I'm able to make movies using AI almost at the caliber of production value as those in major production studios. So why wouldn't we embrace it? Somebody else in the room was like, hell no. Like, this is the devil's work. This is going to put all of us out of work. This is going to destroy our ability to tell stories. It's biased. It's Islamophobic. It's racist. It's going to, completely destroy our ability to tell stories. So even within these communities, I feel like there's these multiple dynamics and takes. And I wonder, Shaina, since you work with Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are they embracing generative AI as a tool, or is there skepticism there?
I think it's a mixed bag, depending on what end of Gen Z and Gen Alpha you're looking at. Gen Alpha is obviously younger than Gen Z. Your youngest Gen Z is around 16, 17 after 1996. And what I would say is a few things. I think the first piece of it is for tool and utility for schoolwork, obviously there's other considerations of what the lowest barrier to entry is. And I think the critique that exists of AI is at the higher barrier of entries. People can't really describe to you what an LLM does. We don't really understand where this data infrastructure or data centers are, or what the environmental impact is. And I think that's because those things are purposefully gate-kept from you. When you think about social media, the way that social media exploded, or the way that Web 2 and Web 3 exploded, the metaverse, all of these tools came up with this, created by people that did not look like communities like ours, and got to be the cultural gatekeepers and arbiters of how these technologies are deployed and utilized. And I think there is a level of skepticism from young people in particular, where we're like, well, who did create this tool? Where are you getting this information from? And while that exists, I think at the end of the day, when you think about, I think two things can be true, right? There's a lot of moral inconsistencies. Young people want to care about the climate and also buy from fast fashion. Those are two things that are true. But if that's the reality of what's happening, that means that the onus is on brands, corporations, governments, and regulators to step in and create the guardrails that we follow through with. And there's a nonprofit that's called creators.org that was trying to create the first manifesto of creator rights. And it's something similar to around the movement around data protection and how we can have data rights for citizens. But I think those things are really hard to integrate into policy and actually get to come to fruition. But if we had the right vehicles and the right mechanisms that aren't actually dependent on everyday people, but instead on policymakers and regulators, I think there'd be less of a concern. But at the end of the day, I do believe that young people are tired, and we're all just trying to get through the day without crying, and we're the loneliest generation in human history, and that means that if something makes your life a little bit easier, odds are you're going to use it. Why do we turn to places like Spotify, where you give all your data away and get a better offering? Because we don't understand enough about our own data protection or data privacy to know what we're giving away. It's just a better end product, and if that's the case, I do believe that the path of least resistance and the least friction is felt when you feel like you're getting an end output for what you needed, and it made your day a little bit easier, which is why these models are being so repetitively used by Gen Z, and we're also experimenting with which one's better at what. Nano Banana is actually pretty good at generating an image without altering what I submit to it. ChatGPT almost always will alter my image when I first submit to it. So I think people are doing their own understanding of the pros and cons of it, but are definitely and actively using them in their day in, day out, particularly when it's efficient for them.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring up the hot off the press news that TikTok has reached a deal to spin off its U.S. operations to some super hip, cool companies like Oracle and Dell. I'm curious just to hear your all's immediate quick takes on what this might mean for the creator community. The details obviously are not out yet, but this, TikTok has become such a bastion of creative expression, especially for younger generations. Does this mean anything? Is this going to have any impacts or changes? What is your hottest take that you can give me right now?
Oh my God, hottest take. Come on, you have hot takes. You should go first now.
My hot takes?
Yeah, please. Do your hot takes while I think about my lukewarm take.
Sure. I'll just start talking, and if something will happen. So I think the one thing that we know for sure that happens, and I've lived long enough to see this, is these corporations can come in, and just because they bought the cool platform, that doesn't mean the platform stays cool. So, and I remember when I was talking about leaving Twitter when Elon bought it, people were like, you're not leaving Twitter. I'm like, hey, I'm the generation that left MySpace. I'm the generation that left Friendster. Anybody here? Friendster? So I think that you can buy TikTok and you can buy all our information's on there and everything, but if you don't do it correctly, or if it feels a little bit, if it suddenly feels like my dad owns it, and I mean my dad, then I'm not hanging out there anymore. You know what I mean? So I think certainly we should pay attention to it because it is about media consolidation. I'm not breaking news here by saying Larry Ellison, who bought TikTok, is the dad of David Ellison, who bought CBS and Paramount and all those things. So we're going back to the monarchy system. So I think that knowing that, and luckily Gen Z is super informed about these things, so I don't think it's happening. I don't think TikTok creators, the young people in there, are unaware of it, but it's like TikTok is now on probation. And we will see how you do, but it doesn't mean we have to stay here, because guess what? There is somebody's in their house creating a platform that if the cool kids deem that that's the place to go, if the young cool kids, and let's be clear, the black folks deem that that's a cool place to go, then we will go there. So Threads is so happy that now Black Threads is a thing, because it means that they've done the right job by getting rid of Black Twitter. So by pulling away. So I think that knowing that, it's good to track all these things because it is about media consolidation and it is about turning us into a monarchy. But that doesn't mean just because they have it doesn't mean that they're going to always have it.
I think for TikTok uniquely, the FYP, like your For You page, was like the saying is, it knows me better than I know myself. And this idea of the algorithm being able to position things to you that just based on your sentiment of what you like, how long you spent on something, it could then feed you things that would keep you on there for hours on end, versus now on a platform like Instagram, it's now saying you can self-select things that you want to opt in or opt out of in your algorithm. Creates this honestly just asymmetric imbalance between what we see on our feeds and what is streamlined to us. So I'm more concerned honestly about the biases that it's going to introduce, and already people, at least young people, have made a lot of commentary on when this deal goes through, or if, as these changes happen, like, am I going to become a lot more cognizant of what's being policed and censored on these platforms? Because we already know that of the longer legacy social media platforms, but TikTok felt a little bit more different up until now. So I think there's definite concerns on censorship, on what will be allowed on the platform and how it'll change. But I also think there's power to the people. People revolted when Instagram started to take away chronological feeds. And they were like, I don't want this weird assessment of what you want to feed me. I want to just see chronological feeds. And then they changed that. So then there were 2 features where you can now select your favorites and also have a chronological feed. So I think when push comes to shove, there was a reason why the Biden administration was unsuccessful in first getting rid of TikTok, because young people were like, we're going to go protest in the streets. Let's not get it twisted. We need to see, I built my For You page brick by brick. That's exactly what people say. So this is literally war for Gen Z. So as we're maybe in a real war, so God knows what's happening. But all of it to say, I think there will be reactions that we'll get to see from the public as well in terms of the future of platforms like this.
I want to open up to questions in just a second, but I had one last question to kind of round us out here. We've been talking about creators and stories and what is and isn't getting published and the impact that emerging tech has. I'm just curious to hear from, on a more basic level, for each of you, what are the stories that you think deserve to be heard that are not getting much attention these days? They could be stories or voices or creators that you think maybe deserve to be embraced and highlighted and amplified.
No, please. I keep going first, so I would love for you to go to first. I'm going to be silent. Gen Z quiet.
Gen Z quiet.
Gen Z quiet.
Quiet quitting.
Can I install that in my house?
That's just Gen Alpha model.
Gen Z quiet. That wouldn't work. My wife would be like, put that back up. All right. So I feel like there's certain responsibilities I have based on who I am in the world and how the world sees me. So I'm a black man, which is all one word. I'm a part of the stand-up comedian community. Cisgender, heterosexual, male, and I know that many of my peers who are represented in a lot of those categories are some of the people out there who are proudly and monetizing hate speech towards the trans community. And so it becomes one of my jobs, and I see it right now, is to make sure that anytime I'm on these social media platforms and somebody's doing the opposite of that, is to just elevate it to try to break up the algorithm of my peers being the worst arbiters of hate speech against. So that is not all I'm doing. Yeah. I'm also trying to be anti-racist, trying to be generally supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, trying to be pro reproductive justice, reproductive rights, all things. But recently, with the amount of hate that I've seen, and also part of it is also calling out my stand-up comedian community when they're not doing it right, to the detriment of my net worth. But so I just feel like that is my personal responsibility that I've taken on and then sometimes to fight I will generally not fight in the comments unless it's about these issues. And I'm like, all right, here we go. That's my own personal thing, to be a heterosexual cisgender man who is saying trans people belong, trans people can play sports and do play sports and should be allowed to play sports. So there you go.
Amen.
There's a great op-ed by a student at Penn, that Lala Mustafa, where she talks about how we've been told that history repeats itself, but in reality, it's an amalgamation of very intentional acts that people in power choose to put forward. And I read this, maybe like 2 years ago, and it was as conflict was happening in the Middle East, as we were seeing devastation in Gaza, and I think I really sat with that because it's interesting to think about the stories we get to hear when people who are being oppressed are benefiting from the system of their oppressors. And what I mean by that is, like, when you have access to social media, you're able to tell stories. We know what's happening in Gaza because people have access to these tools. But when we think about the global south or what's happening in Sudan and Congo, like, there is so much suffering and oppression in places unknown to us. And I want to hear stories of 15-year-old girls in Sudan who love to cook and love K-pop Demon Hunters and love the same things that we love. And we don't always get the opportunity to hear from those voices because of the way that media is constructed, the way that capital is distributed, and also just infrastructurally. Access to technology, access to basic needs changes the way we get to hear whose voices we get to hear and when we get to hear them. And I think the same is true in the US. I am someone who goes a lot to big cities, spends time in modern cosmopolitan places, but like I want to know the story about rural kids in Texas and young boys that like have the same concerns that I do, but would be the type of kids that we would expect to go and vote in red states, right? Mm-hmm. Or to be on a conservative trajectory, when in reality I think it's the same reason why Mamdani and Trump won. People are against the status quo. We want people to be honest and authentic to us and have a personality. If you want to go on Truth Social and you read something Trump said, he wrote that. If you go and look at Mamdani, whether or not, when I do not agree with him, to be clear, but you're like, that's a real person. I don't agree with him. He's insane. He's kind of funny. Terrifying. But the same is said for the Mamdanification of how we're thinking about politics. I tell brands, like, the best case study is what Mamdani's election did for us, because 60,000 Trump voters also voted for Zohran Mamdani. So to me, the stories that can push against the way that we are all struggling with the status quo, and at the same time tell those stories of the kids that never would get a chance or the people that would never get a chance, are hopefully more of where we get to see media and time and investment poured into.
And it just brings me back to what you were saying earlier. That takes us back to authenticity. Yeah. Because whatever Trump is, he is being authentic. Yeah. And that's what we also got from Mamdani. Like, I feel like whatever these people are being, they are being authentic, and that is resonating over even the truth of what they're saying in the Trump case.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Well, let's take some questions. I want to do this two at a time, if that's okay. I'll take two questions and then get answers here. Do we have mics? Okay. I see some very shy hand raises. I need your hands to go up in the sky.
This person was like,
okay, yes, for sure. 1 and 2 behind you, and then we'll come back for another 2.
Hi, Carmelia Ray from Breezeway. my question was, because this was about creators and how to partner with them. So what would you recommend for a brand that's reaching out to a creator, and the immediate question is, can you send me your rates for and what you charge per post and this and that? What I would love to know is, should creators or those who are thinking about being creators or influencers have an actual rate card, or what's the better question to ask in response to that question?
I need to know this too.
Well,
Please, I don't have the answer.
take one more behind.
Yeah, thanks for shedding light on all these topics. Very wonderfully said. And my name is Talal. I wanted to ask just on what you mentioned on sort of niching into hard into your interests, and just going that direction versus trying to do the thing that's pleasing to all the brands. From a creator standpoint, if you can just expand on your experience there, and then from sort of a consulting brand standpoint, where's the balance between not alienating people unnecessarily while also maintaining that transparency and authenticity?
Thanks. Rate cards and authenticity, or rate cards and niching yourself.
Yeah, I can answer quickly on the rate card point. I think it's important to know what your non-negotiables are in terms of as a standard for your personal self, what you would want to give to the brand, right? That's the most important thing, because you have a lot of leverage as a creator. Also, even if it seems more difficult and you're like, oh, I haven't had a brand deal in a while, et cetera, because your platform is a place for you to talk about the things you love. If you keep talking about skincare, brands are going to send you PR, right? Whatever it might be. So I think it's more important to have a set boundary of what you think that you're willing to do, and then also try to position it not as a one-off, but as a long-term partnership. Whenever you can ask for things over a cadence of 3 months or 6 months, or also do value exchange, be like, I'd love to come to your next event. I'd love to get PR for this. I'm doing a community drive for Christmas. Like, can you send me product for that as well? Or volunteer here. So there's other ways to construct your ask to a brand, but I do think it's important at a bare minimum to know what you would typically ask, and then to ask your friends who have similar following or have a similar background, like, what are you getting? Or using tools, like I said, mentioned earlier, like Clara for creators is a paid transparency tool where creators will say how much they were posted, because there's a lot of discrepancy between that of people of color that are getting paid versus those that are not. CLARA, Clara for creators, is like a platform that you can use as well.
Yeah, I would just say that certainly asking other creators who you're in community with. I think of if somebody came to me right now, I would reach out to Francesca Ramsey and be like, hey, because I know she knows everything about this. The other thing I would tell people just generally when you're talking about money, and especially if you're new to talking about money and you don't have somebody to talk about money for you, I tell people, figure out what the amount of money that if they offered to you, you would take it right away. You'd be like, yes, and then double it, because that's how negotiation works.
True.
And people get so afraid to do that, and I understand. But just because sometimes you'll find out you'll double it, and they'll be like, "Thanks," and you'll be like, "Oh my God, I should have doubled the double." So, but also let people know that you will be negotiable with this. So yeah, but I think certainly if you're negotiating yourself, you have to decide. I would be happy to get X amount of money, so let me ask for 2X just so we can settle. Maybe we'll settle in the middle. So, and then the thing about
and niching yourself.
I think the point on niching yourself to me is like, if you know you can be what you're really passionate about and you're a subject matter expert in XYZ, a lot of brands are now turning to like new media ecosystems like a Substack or Reddit or other places where subversive culture is existing, because everything is mainstream. You don't want to know Labubu's when they're Labubu's. You want to know what the next hot plushie toy is before it blows up. So I think that's why niching yourself is important and critical for whatever industry or area you're relevant to. That doesn't mean you shouldn't still do what I would call like quote unquote lifestyle content, right? Get ready with me, day in the life, look at behind the scenes. People just want to feel like they're watching their friend in their content, and however that manifests for you, that's how you should actualize it. So whether it's replying to your comment section, whether it's saying I'm going to do a takeover with my followers, I'm doing this meetup, it's a question of what you're comfortable with. But now brands, TikTok is so saturated, you need something to differentiate yourself, and to me that comes from an interest-based experience, but it could be very different in terms of format, in terms of what you feel comfortable with, and I don't think it's a zero-sum game either. Like, you don't have to choose between the two in my experiences, but come out, you're a creator, so please tell us.
First of all, I love the idea of niching yourself. I don't know if that's a great way to put it. I think don't understand that you're also more than one thing. So like, I think there's a way that I can niche myself and be like anti-racist comedian, but there's also a way that I'm always on social media talking about, I love Bruce Lee. And I've done it so much that then Bruce Lee people reach out to me, hey, do you want to do it? Yes, I do. So making sure that you also are a full three-dimensional human being, so you're not, because that will bring in other things that you wouldn't expect to come, just because people will know, oh, I didn't know, that's a different person talking about that thing, so let's reach out to him about that thing. So I find also, and then also knowing that alienation is part of the game. That you're not alienating, you're funneling. you're finding the people who really get you. So
Yeah, it's fandom.
Yeah, it's fandom. Yeah.
We have time for maybe 2 more questions. I see one here, and then I'll do one in the back in the blue shirt. Sorry, I saw other hands, but.
Hi, thank you for this panel. Bill Shea with 8 Billion Voices.
I think it was $8 billion.
We'll work it.
Yeah, no, I was like, oh, nice to meet you, Bill.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, Bill's got the bill. Well, I think you've been alluding to the answer already to my question toward the end here, because when technology intervenes in the way we connect with people, there's enormous risk, and to mental health in particular. And I'm wondering what advice you have for creatives about how they navigate that gap, or maybe even the connection between their own mental health space and the space of the people they're bound to influence when they're out of reach otherwise, and we can't really know what impact we've had on their mental health.
Okay, and one last one.
I don't need a microphone, I'm good.
Oh, boy.
The question is to actually all 3 of you, that I have a nonprofit that runs online education to girls at risk, especially in Afghanistan, and we're getting their stories out. And there are poets and painters and artists and scientists and tech, and we're getting their word out. We're looking for partners. It is very hard from a nonprofit standpoint. I come from the entertainment industry, so this is new for me to do nonprofit. How do you find creators and other brands? I'm online all the time, and I found a couple. Hijab Bounder is great, she's going to support us, but how do you find them and reach out to them without sounding, unfortunately, inauthentic in your outreach?
Predatory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. 2 questions.
Yeah, quick. I saw the inside.
Yes. We all saw the end.
Yeah. Mental health. I feel like I've seen so many creators. This is a thing that happens. People I follow, they don't post for a few weeks, and they come up with the video that's like, that always starts like that.
The millennial side.
The millennial side. Yeah. Yeah.
I hate that. I resent that as a millennial.
Yeah. Gen X, the greatest generation. So I think it becomes
generations?
really
That's
important. We don't
great.
have time. It's just true. It's just true. So I think as someone who's been through mental health challenges in my life and understands, don't let this thing run you. You run this thing. And if you don't post today because you're not there, I saw a friend of mine, KJ Kearney, post today. I was supposed to have a Substack this morning. I wrote it. I thought it was ass. I'll post something later. And I feel like that's, again, building authenticity. Because the thing about this, unfortunately, in the creator space, there's no off season. Remember, people of my age remember when TV was off in the summertime and you went outside, or you watched reruns? There's no off season now, and I think you have to sort of start to figure out how to build in your off season, or also be okay just taking a break and knowing that you're going to lose a certain number of whatever, because otherwise we can't do this till the end of time, So, and then I'll let you go.
Last word, Shanna.
Just to answer your question, I don't know if you know, I'm thinking just as the way that I view relationship building and brand deals and all of those things is how can you do it in intimate moments and through relationships first. So my recommendation to you would be if you have an amazing Afghani poet, what would it look like to have her do a showcase and inviting creators in to come and experience that. Muslim Thick, at Muslim Thick, formerly on TikTok, was the largest Muslim TikToker who's Afghani, who's a good friend of mine. Zara is the type of person who I would say even if she doesn't come, if you do reach out and have that one first connection point, it's really accessible for them to experience art, come in, and organically, even for brands, I say this, you could pay a creator a flat fee just to come and do one post versus just inviting them in to an experience, to a dinner, to whatever convening you might be formatting. They'll organically talk about what they did in their lives. They'll give you a story post, they'll give you an in-feed post without even asking, and if you're able to personally build a relationship with them, that relationship becomes a lot more long-term. But I think there's no harm in always just sending a cold email, asking, DMing, emailing. Oftentimes a lot of these people don't even have managers and agents, so it's them answering themselves. And find that convening in person is like the easiest way for you to build a relationship with them. And then you can always be like, remember I reached out that time? Let me tell you about this again. Even if they say no. And we've actually done a lot of that kind of work. When we first built some relationship with creators, it was all just cold DM. And it's very effective. So.
All right, that concludes
you
our
so
session.
much.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. Thank you, Shaina.
Thank you, Zaki. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
And
you.
thanks you all, and we'll see you guys around.